G'day Mindstars, Aaron here, and welcome to Unpack, the show about life shit. Unpack is about having raw, honest conversations with people from all walks of life as they tell their remarkable stories of well-being and resilience. And today, we have a fantastic guest, Shaun O'Gorman, former policeman from the Dog Squad, the Covert and Surveillance Unit, PTSD survivor, and now inspirational bloke in the community. So welcome.
Thanks, Aaron. So good to be here.
Great to have you, mate.
So good to be here.
So let's start at the beginning. Let's talk about what you're doing now. What are you working on at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So I run my own business called the Strong Life Project, and I'm a human behaviour and resilience consultant. But basically what I work on is stress resilience, and for the main part for me is the leadership part.
Yep.
So really trying to teach men, or alpha personalities is what I call it, but a lot of it is men to be more emotionally connected, loving and powerful leaders in their life.
Wow.
Because I believe in a lot of ways, I think we've emasculated men to the point where we just aren't allowing them to be emotionally connected, boys don't cry, all that sort of stuff. And I think it's coming back in our communities where we just don't have strong leaders to help regulate some of our less than amazing participants.
That's fantastic work, and it's such important work. Where are you doing that? Where do you?
So do a lot of stuff with police, Queensland Police, Australian Federal Police, Corrective Services, but also now very much branching out into more professional sporting environments.
Great.
I'm doing some stuff coming up with the Invictus Games.
Wow. And
the long-term vision is really to get into doing a lot with CEOs, corporates, to have that influence in that community, because I think I spent 15 years in corporate, and no doubt we'll get into that. But we really are focused on the wrong things. It's not about emotional connection. It's not about the power that comes from actually standing up and being a leader in our society. We're all wanting to fit in and be the same.
Yep.
So it's about getting into all those communities.
That's brilliant. And do you see those similarities in men and women, but men especially, across prisons,
everywhere,
police, C-suite, CEOs, elite sport?
Yeah.
What are some of the similarities?
The similarities to me, it's that essentially the mask, and that in a nutshell is what it is. So most men, and I say alpha personality, so when I'm dealing in law enforcement or corrections and in business, the women who are very strong, the alpha personality. Yeah. So you have alpha male is something we're used to, but alpha females. And the people who are really successful in life normally are an alpha personality. They don't hold back. They're not afraid of their own power. They're not afraid to be outside. They're not afraid to be an outlier. So those people are very confident, most of them, in their business interaction. The difference is probably often women are more emotionally connected and will talk to each other. I think that's a natural thing.
Yep. Men
don't. So the thing I see through all of those communities, whether it's a special weapons police officer, whether it's a maximum security unit prison officer, whether it's a CEO or a 19-year-old guy that I'm mentoring at the moment, the same thing. It's anxiety, fear of what people think, fear of the mask, fear of people thinking you're weak or a coward, all the same stuff.
So which brings me to the question. This unpacks very much about talking about well-being, talking about resilience.
Yep.
What's well-being for you, and how do you implement that in your life?
Yeah, sure. So well-being for me, Aaron, is probably different to a lot of people, as in I think a lot of people talk about balance.
Yeah.
I have no interest in balance.
Yep.
And I learned a long time ago that I've got a 100 miles an hour personality. I've got a full-on personality, and I'm obsessive. So now I'm just obsessive. My well-being is obsessive about positive things. So instead of it being about drinking or risk-taking behaviour or self-destructive behaviour, for me now it's about personal development, emotional awareness, growth, and well-being for me is obviously sleeping well and eating well and meditation, and training and all those things. But it's very much about the mindset that I have around always wanting to be the best version of me possible every day. So today I want to be the best version of me possible today. Might be better than yesterday, might not, depending on where I am. But every day I want to be striving to be a better person, be the best version of me I am. And that just means the well-being thing takes care of itself.
That's
Does that
fantastic.
make sense?
Absolutely. And so how do you measure that? How do you?
Yeah, sure.
Is there an awareness or
a
sort of self as contact, or being present, I suppose?
Yeah, it's intuitive. So much of what I do is intuitive. So, and for your guys who don't really get what that is, that's just being really tapped into your heart and what's real for you, what's true for you. Not the BS that we think about, right?
Yeah.
So the crap that we have in our head that's all made up and it's all just an assessment, that's fiction. It's all just fiction. I judge it by how I feel. I judge it by how effective I am, how connected I am, how stressed I am, how happy I am, and the actual quantifiable measures are 8 hours sleep a night, meditation every day,
Yep.
training at least 5 days a week,
Yep.
and having some, like clean eating is massive for me, but that's just a give me now, and some sort of positive ingestion of information, be that YouTube videos, books, something, daily.
It's not rocket science, is it? It's
So easy.
often those simple things. Yeah, like you don't have to go sit in the top of a mountain.
No.
It's actually just getting some of those
That's
really
it.
basic stuff. So, yeah.
And those 5 simple things to me, everything I do comes back to sleep, nutrition, training, meditation, and what I call mental rehab, that
Yeah.
positive influence.
It's good.
It's simple as, but it's not easy
Yeah.
because it takes a lot of focus, a lot of commitment, and it takes a lot of courage because most people don't live like that. So if you live like that, I gave up drinking 3 years ago, for instance, and that was a massive thing, and I'd had a couple of years off at different times for the previous few years. Friends of mine who are all ex-police officers or police officers or big drinkers, it was like, you know, I don't know what they thought I was doing something weird, like I joined a cult where I'm like, you know, I don't drink. And
Yeah.
the reaction was amazing.
That says a lot, doesn't
Simple
it?
things like that.
That's right. So it sounds like you've been on a journey or taken
Sure.
some massive steps. Was there a time when you had concerns about your well-being and realised you had to focus on your well-being? I mean, does that go back to your career as a
Absolutely.
policeman? I think your father was a policeman.
Yeah, absolutely. So my background in a nutshell is, I'm 40 out. I was born in 1970. My dad was a cop for 42 years. All I wanted to ever do was be a cop. Dad was very well known in the police and a policeman's policeman, I guess. He was the second most decorated police officer for Bravey in Australia at one point.
Is that right?
So he was pretty full on, and everybody knew him. He was like amazing in that. So I worshipped him, wanted to follow in those footsteps and do something significant, like do something where I made a difference and I impacted people. So I joined the police, and my personality, like I said, I'm obsessive. I just went 1,000 miles an hour. Joined at 19. By the time I was 31, I had been diagnosed with PTSD, battled depression badly, battled suicide for many years, and it culminated with me spending 3 nights in a row lying in bed with a Glock in my hand, drinking, going to kill myself.
Wow.
And then in that same period, I went to a 30th birthday on the Gold Coast, and I was on the 24th or 26th, I can't remember which floor, on the outside of the balcony, drunk, in tears, smoking cigarettes, drinking, trying to find the courage to jump. So that's like 16 years ago now. So out of that, at the time, was obviously pretty bad. Now I'm like, best thing that ever happened to me. It was absolutely an amazing experience because the bounce back from there has just never stopped.
Yes.
So I'm back past wherever I thought I could be.
What an incredible moment.
Yeah, amazing, mate. I'm actually really grateful for it now, as silly as that sounds.
No, I get that completely. I think it's the light and dark.
Oh, yeah,
And
definitely.
I'm fascinated by the 19-year-old who comes in to the force. Talk about life in the force and what you were doing, and really between 19 and 31, couldn't be more different. Is that right? Or
Yeah, absolutely. I went in at 19 in 1989, and my dad was very well known, obviously, like I said, in a full-on policeman. So I sort of took the policing that he'd done in the 70s and 80s, which is pretty full-on, like a lot of violent guys, and the cops are pretty tough.
Yeah.
So I went, well, that's how you do it. At 19, joined the police. In the year 2000, there was a big inquiry, Fitzgerald inquiry in the Queensland Police. So then a lot of things changed, and I was bucking that trend, constantly in trouble. When I was 22, as cliche as this all sounds, at 22 years of age, joined the Police Dog Squad. So I was on my own. I had a gun, car, dog at home. I'd get in the car and go, no supervisor with me, and I would just go to whatever job got called. So whether that could be a violent domestic, armed robberies, car chases, whatever. And I went to every job I could find that was like that because I loved that challenge of pushing myself hard. And part of that was based in wanting to be a great cop. The other part was based in what we talked about before for men. When I looked around at other guys, they were all tough guys. Like in that era, like there was a lot of really tough men and women in the police. The guys that were around me, who were other like early 20s kids, we were all doing these really, you'd go to these violent incidents and, with guns and fights and stabbings and I'd turn up there, I'd look at everyone else and they all seemed to be so calm and not affected, but I was terrified. So I'm looking at them going, well, there must be something wrong with me because they all seem to have it totally together. And in my naivety of thinking everybody's honest, even though I wasn't, I would mask that so that would eat away at me. So I'd feel like an imposter.
Yeah, wow.
So the more brave things I did, and I would push harder and harder to prove to myself I was a tough guy, I would end up doing more and more brave, aka stupid things often, like going to a siege where someone was firing shots out of a house and take 2 other police and walk up, kick the door in and go in and grab the guy. Stuff like that was just pretty stupid. These days would just never happen. But I did that because of fear, because I didn't want anybody to be able to consider that I was a coward or I was weak. So that imposter syndrome kicked in. So that was pretty savage. Then I did that for a number of years. Then in the late 90s, I went to the covert surveillance unit. So undercover cops, and it has surveillance operatives. So basically plainclothes, undercover for want of a better term. I don't go into it for methodology stuff, obviously, but basically where you do security for the coverts, you follow people around when they're dealing drugs, whatever, gather that evidence. And they're all major and organised criminal gangs around drugs or violence or armed robberies or bikies. Did that for a couple of years and loved it, but I was bored. 90% of the time you're sitting in a car watching an empty house or something.
It would be, that's it. It's like, it's all happening on nothing, wouldn't it?
That's it. So it's not like the movies.
Yep.
And I was in the car and I have self-diagnosed ADHD, so like that would just drive me mad. So then I thought, well, that's not my thing. And I went back to the dog squad at Logan. So obviously it's a pretty violent place, and knew that things were really going bad, but didn't know what to do. And I was way too scared to admit it.
What do you mean going bad?
As in stress. I was drinking a lot. I was getting more angry. Relationships were falling apart. I was having suicidal thoughts. I was very much in that self-destructive spiral. That sort of mental injury, I call it a mental injury. That's what that mental injury or that comes from, that we see often in young alpha males who are so, whether it's athletes, whether cops, soldiers, whoever, get to a point of that fear and that imposter syndrome of, I need to regulate this somehow. And I call it the demons. So I need to control the demons. And the only way I did that was alcohol, promiscuity, violence. I'd go to a pub or a bar or whatever, and I'd be there with a group of friends and would never ever, would never start a fight. But I had such an angry energy about me that anybody, like, and you're an ex-football player, so there'd be football players or teams would be at this particular place you used to go all the time, and that energy of alpha male and alpha male would just kick off, and then there'd be a fight.
It'd be on.
Then that was a standard sort of thing.
What do you think? Did that happen over time, or is it stuff you saw? Is it stuff you experienced as a policeman? Was it the stuff you bring in your personal life? Was it all coming together? Like what did you see on the front line?
Yeah, that's all of the above, mate. Because something that I love and I've picked up recently is the analogy of the frog in the boiling water. And if you've heard that, for your guys who haven't. So basically the whole idea is that you put a frog in a cold pot of water, you heat that incrementally over a period of time, eventually the water boils and the frog dies because it doesn't realise it's getting hotter. If you took that frog and dropped it in the boiling pot, it jumps out. So that's an analogy for life for me. For me, I was very much at 19, so just bright-eyed, very optimistic about changing the world and making a difference. Had my battles with what I think probably now was some depression and different things as a teenager. Mum and Dad got divorced, Dad wasn't around as much, like standard sort of stuff, not an unusual story. And I think so many people struggle with, even these days, with suicide's the biggest killer of people 15 to 24, right? So it's pretty bad. Then I joined the police thinking that would make me happy. Then it'd be good. Then I got in there and I was like, oh, this isn't really it. So once I get the dog squad, that'll make me happy. Then that wasn't really it. And once I get that, I'll be happy. And that was a never revolving door for me. And getting to the point of going, well, I'm just not happy, I'm miserable, which normal people, I use the analogy of you carry a bucket around, normal people, not cops, have all the crap from life goes in that bucket, and we have depression, mental health stuff's a big issue.
Yes.
Then you put policing on top of that.
That's right.
And probably policing the way I did it, and many guys like me, I wasn't unique by any stretch of the imagination, but violence after violence after violence. And because I was a very emotionally connected person, that's why I wanted to do that job, to help people and make a difference, very driven by that social justice. I believe you become very susceptible to that emotional injury of impact of what victims you see in victims.
For people who, I think most of us actually don't understand what happens, it's almost not talked about. We talk about PTSD or seeing violence or seeing, horrific things, and whether it's in war or whether it's the AMBOs, whether it's police, like to give people an idea without having, for the sake of being graphic, but what kind of things would you see day in, day out?
Well, I'll tell you, this is a story that I use when I do presentations, and I've written a book about all this, like these stories. This was the sort of, I guess, the most violent job that I went to, but to a very long story short, we ended up in a vehicle pursuit through the valley, through New Farm. Two guys went out with the specific purpose of suicide by police, unbeknownst to us at the time. They were both bad drug addicts. They pulled up beside an unmarked detective's car at a set of traffic lights, went through the red light, and then a pursuit started. So the guys start calling the chase, which wasn't unusual, and then they're screaming on the radio about shots fired. These guys start shooting at them, shot out the side windows of the police car. So I start heading there at 1,000 miles an hour, as I was renowned for driving pretty fast, and it was down near New Farm. I went along Brunswick Street past the cinema, the New Farm cinema, at 140 kilometres an hour going to this job because I want to help my mates. They're screaming for these guys shooting at them. They come up the hill. I stop on the side of the road, and there's a guy sitting. It was a twin cab utility. He was sitting on the passenger's side door with a 243 rifle on the roof, firing shots back at the police. It was very surreal. He went past, and I was sort of there, and he turned and fired 3 shots, missed me, missed my car. I was terrified, but I was really angry.
Yeah.
Do a U-turn, chase them. They crash at the top of the Brunswick Street Mall. There was one police car got through. My car got jammed up on a light pole. So all of the other cars couldn't get to us. So it was just the 2 baddies get out with their rifle. 2 guys in the car, guy and girl in the car, me on foot. We run down the mall. I forgot to take my police dog. I left him in the car. Run down the mall, and these guys are turning around pointing the rifle at me, at us. It's 11 o'clock on a Monday night. I can't fire. I've obviously got my weapon out. I can't fire because there's too many people in the background. Run down around the corner. They didn't fire any shots at us at that point. They had fired dozens of shots. The lead car I was behind had 24 bullets in it at the end of the chase. Go down around the corner. Police come from everywhere. They get it cordoned in under this awning, and the guy who turns out to be the driver had the rifle, but he was holding it up. So he hadn't dropped it as he was holding it up in the sky, and we're screaming at him like every obscenity. Drop the rifle, drop the gun. He puts it under his chin, pulls the trigger, hits the ground, and I'm probably 7 or 8 metres from him, maybe 10 metres from him. It sort of shocks you. Then I start moving in him on the second guy who doesn't have a weapon, and I'm saying to him, "Don't get on the ground," swearing at him. He looks down, goes for the rifle, and I cock my pistol. I'm about to shoot him. He stands up, and as he stands up, puts it in his mouth, pulls the trigger, and hits the ground. I get to him. The driver lives, the passenger dies, blood comes out, blah blah blah. So that was the most sort of spectacular, I guess, job.
If you look back now, I mean, it's hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
I think we've all got it. But are there things that you might do differently? I'm thinking of people who might be watching this who are in that situation.
Absolutely.
And whether, I don't care if it's a policeman, it could be a CEO, it could be
absolutely.
could be somewhat fiery. It just could be an elite sports person who's hating what they're doing. Like
definitely,
it's what's kind of
to me, it's simple things. And the thing is, I really want to reinforce that. Just because I was a cop, and it sounds like a stupid term, but the story's sexy because it's violence and shootings and car chases, right? Yep. So most people go, wow, that's exciting, because they don't know it. But whether it's the pressure of running a multi-million-dollar investment fund, whether it's you're an elite sportsman who that sport was something you loved, but then it gets to a point where you're at an age where this is your job. My partner's an amazing woman, and she deals with some NBA athletes, for instance, and does some coaching with them. And we don't talk about it, but stuff that I pick up, you get guys like that are in the NBA, come from very low socioeconomic backgrounds, very similar to the NRL or ARU or AFL, but probably NRL for us, where they're in this environment where they go from where they've had nothing, not a lot of money, not a lot of that background, then all of a sudden they get a lot of money and a lot of attention and a lot of pressure. Yep. Family comes out of the woodwork. So we think this person's living a dream of like, if you're playing football for a living, what a great life. But the life for them, they're like, I hate this. Because all of a sudden, I'm not me, my sport's not fun anymore. Yep. It's a job and I hate it and it's not who I want to be. So it can be anyone goes through that, right? Yeah. And the only way that we get a real access and focus around that is 2 ways. One, self-awareness. Like, self-awareness is just key. If I could give every human being on the planet a gift, it would be self-awareness. Just so you know who you are, you know why you do what you do, you know where you're good, what you're good at and what you're not. Yep. And you can look at yourself in the mirror and go, you know what, this is who I am, good, bad, and indifferent. And the second thing I'd give you is somebody else who is honest enough that could tell you teach you self-awareness because we need someone else to be able to tell us.
Yeah.
But those people in that difficult situations need to understand that what they do isn't who they are. What's going on right now today isn't who they always have to be.
Yeah.
But it takes courage. It takes a lot of courage. Because 97%, I love making up stats, 97% of society live in this life of mediocrity in jobs they hate, relationships that they don't like, estranged kids, financial problems, overweight, unhealthy. And we all know what to do. Health and fitness to me is a very simple one, right? We all know if you eat well and you exercise and you sleep well, you are healthy.
Yes.
3 things most people don't do well.
It's amazing, that's right. So with the self-awareness, which it sounds like it's self-awareness and having someone help you with that self-awareness, any tips? What's the first step for people?
Yeah. It's to work, and it sounds very self-serving for what you and I do, but I think in a lot of ways it's to find mentors or coaches or someone who can go, you know what, here's a mirror and that's who you are.
Yep.
And I do a lot of that work now, and it was never something I went to do, it's just evolved. And what I find, I've dealt with 3 or 4 clients in the last 2 days who are people who their feedback to me, it's not my ego, is I love what you do because you are brutal. You are black and white, you are so upfront. So I'll sit with these guys, and mostly men, but I deal with alpha women, and I'll sit with them and go, mate, you are just full of shit.
Yeah.
And look them in the eye and go, I say this in my language, I say this with love, and you mean the world to me, you're full of shit.
Yep.
Cool. And they're shocked, but we dance around these things with each other. You need somebody to be able to hold the mirror up and go, you know what, mate, actually, no, that's not really who you are.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very fortunate and grateful these days. Rach, my partner, is like that. We're like that for each other. She holds me accountable.
That's great.
You need someone to hold you accountable.
So as an example, I mean, what was your awareness that took you, because you obviously left the police force, you didn't kill yourself, you actually somehow had the awareness to go, I need to do something different, or I need to get some help or connect, or it sounds like there was a point where you had to discover your well-being or your purpose.
Absolutely.
And you probably, I know you went to the commercial world for a while. How did you go from that low point to the commercial world and then do the amazing work you're doing now? What was that?
Mate, so I left the police out of pure fear of being judged. So often people go what's called medically unfit. They get paid, a couple $100,000 or whatever else. I left with nothing, no money, nothing. Left, struggled financially, and got introduced through a friend who was an ex-police officer to commercial real estate, shopping centre development. Did it, hated it. But I was self-medicating with alcohol heavily. I was in recreational drugs, cocaine and ecstasy for a period, probably 12 months. I went pretty hard at that.
Wow.
None of that made any difference. In the moment I felt amazing, then for 3 days I'd have the demons and it was horrible. And my daughter was born on the 17th of Feb 2005 and my world changed. And it literally was one of those, cliched lightning bolt moments where I was in the birthing suite with my now ex-wife and she was born, my daughter was born, I cut the cord, they gave her to me, or they took her away. She had what they call meconium, I think it's called, so they have to suction her throat, she couldn't breathe. Gave her straight to me because they were attending to my wife after birth, obviously. And I looked down at this human and burst into tears and just thought, you have got to get your shit together. And it was literally, and the language is a lot harsher than that. And I feel still emotional when I talk about it because I looked at her and thought, fuck, I've got to do this now.
What was it?
She depended on me then. Up until that point, it didn't matter.
Just you?
Yeah, up until that point. And suicide was still a really strong option up until that point for me. And it was almost a parachute. It was almost a safety net.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if it gets any worse, I'll just end it. So that constantly was there. And that had been there for years, mate. Like probably even early 20, like probably not long after I joined the dog squad, that was there. I was at the point of going, you know what? No, I'm going to change this because I don't want my daughter growing up with that same damage or that same whatever. So, mate, I went on a journey from then.
It's just amazing to me. And I just want to talk about turning moment.
Oh, unbelievable.
And a baby, brand new baby, can't talk, but you've had this, I don't know, spiritual's the wrong word.
But it is. Absolutely.
Spiritual moment.
Absolutely.
Almost talk about an awakening.
Absolutely.
I am going to be a different man.
Yep. And then the next day I forgot it. So then I went in and out of it for years. And it was so impactful on me at the time. And I actually forgot about it for a period. Like for a little while it was fresh. But then I ended up launching, because of her, onto this journey of self-development and exploration. And then my second daughter was born 3 years later. And I'd got quite used to My first daughter, obviously. So then she was just around. So I was like, oh, and a lot of the impact of that moment had gone.
Yes.
So I was still doing things like I went and did the thing called landmark education, where I'd sit in a room with 300 people for 12 hours a day over a weekend. And they're talking about their feelings and high-five the person next to you and hug the person next to you. And I'm like, I just want to hit everyone within a 3-metre radius, right?
As in punch them.
Yeah, because I'm so uncomfortable and I'm like, I don't want to talk about this stuff. And I'm terrified if I open the door, it all flows out and I'll never be able to put it back in. And what's that mean? Like, will I literally just fall apart? And I hated it. And I would sit in the car park of that.
Sorry to interrupt. Did you know that then? So you actually knew that then? Because I hear that a lot from men. I can't even start.
Oh,
Because if I open the door a little bit, it will all come out, and I don't know how to deal with that. I've got so much, it's like the bottle, it's so bottled up that I'll either explode and kill myself, or
absolutely.
or I just need to keep it in there forever and not deal with it.
Definitely.
That's what you were feeling.
Absolutely.
There's 2 words, and from getting to know you sitting here, there's 2 words. I think it's authentic and vulnerable. The 2 words that seem to be cutting through everything that we do and see and people are looking for because of that reason, I think. So can I take you back just to finish off?
Sure.
Put you on the spot, those 5 simple things that you spoke about at the start.
Yeah, and 100%. I'm going to touch the authentic and vulnerable thing. That's the key to everything.
Yeah.
Because and that comes back to we're scared of what people think of us. That's what everything we're talking about, people are terrified of what other people think.
Yeah.
I've got a one-liner that I go, what other people think of me is none of my business. And I use that if I'm challenged, whatever it is. I'm at the point now, like I walk in here today, I'm really calm, look forward to meeting you guys. I used to be have so much social anxiety walking into a room of people or whatever. And the voice in my head would be, you're not good enough, they'll think you're an idiot, blah, blah. I changed that by just going, what other people think of me doesn't matter. So long as I know in my heart I'm being a good person, then what you think, with all respect to you, I don't care.
Yep.
The 5 simple things to live an amazing life are so stupidly simple. Is that sleep, 8 hours sleep a night, eat clean food, train hard, exercise, but hard. You got to be breathing hard, sweating, red-faced. It's got to hurt because the physiology, the neurochemical reaction of dopamine and serotonin, all things that unwind the stress response. Stress, mental health, depression, it's a chemical cocktail. It's a chemical imbalance. They're chemicals that help. The food part is also, it's chemically filled, so that impacts it. Then you go to meditation. It's massive, and we were talking about it before, right? Meditation is probably the biggest thing that's turned me around because it slows down that monkey mind, that evil voice in your head that's telling you that you're a shit human. The thing that stresses, that wakes you up at 2 a.m. going, I've got to pay that bill, or did the cat get out, or whatever it is. And then the last one to me is what I call mental rehabilitation. And mental rehabilitation to me is going, if you're physically rehabbing yourself, then you will do the exercises, stretch, whatever it might be. If I twisted my ankle, I'll do what I need to do with anti-inflammatories and stretch and movement and whatever, cold therapy or something to do it. We don't do that for our mental and emotional health. And I don't care whatever age you are, especially if you're getting towards my age, nearly, like I'm 48, so close to 50 years of age, you can't have been this far through life and not had injuries, mental, emotional impacts, right? So if you're not rehabbing yourself, then that injury is getting worse. If I rolled my ankle today and kept running and kept doing whatever, it's never going to get better. It will get worse. Same thing.
Yeah.
And that mental rehab for me is watching videos like this, podcasts, reading books, watching YouTube videos, the sum total of the people you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
All those things is ingesting positivity, not negativity. If you do those 5 things, the rest of it takes care of itself.
Do you have any just last minute takeaways or recommendations or specific books or podcasts that people can say, this is where I want to start, this is...
Yeah, sure. Mate, I do all that, like, in the stronglifeproject.com, my business is that I've done 850 daily podcasts and still climbing. I do a lot of this stuff. I do videos and, social media videos. It's all about this. All I say is, there's an amazing thing called Google. You might have heard of it. Put it in there.
Yeah.
Why does my life suck? Why do I feel like shit? Why am I so anxious?
Yeah.
And just go down the rabbit hole because there's so much information. The biggest takeaway for me is your life doesn't always have to be as it is. Doesn't matter where you've come from or what you've been through. My story is one, then it's not really that tragic, it's not really that hard, it's not really that impactful. So many people have been through far more horrific circumstances than me, so many. But you choose whether you're a victim of it or a champion in it.
mental state.
You choose to be a victim of your circumstance, or you choose to be a champion in it. The victim's life happens to them. The champion's life happens because of them. That's really it.
Shaun, mate,
Thanks, mate.
Absolute pleasure.
Pleasure. Thanks,
really
Aaron.
love the work you do.
Thank you very much.
Keep doing it because it's so important. I think these conversations are crucial. I think as we keep shaking things up. So, mate, thank you so much.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate it.
So, thanks so much for joining us again for Unpack. As always, please share, comment, like. Let's really shake up this conversation with people like Shaun, and let's get this a good crack right across the country. So be kind to yourself, be kind to the people around you, and look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much.